Right, so group one, front desk binders. After every group you facilitate, write the names of participants in your group and the group binder at the front desk of each community. Why? You want to know who you're dealing with, you track participation that way, you keep track of what group members you have. It's just a way to audit what you're doing as well as the group members. Two, if you take members of the community out of the building, sign them out in the resident section of the binder at the front desk of each building. Why do you think we sign them out and say where they're going? Again, some of the same things. We want to keep track of the clients. We want to know what they're participating in. It's easy to ascertain interest that way, and it's just a method of maintaining some type of record of what's going on with the client.
Thank you. There's one more thing to that. Some of our residents have memory loss and actually could wander and get lost. And it's happened, even when we've been in groups. So it's real important that we can track who's out, who they were with. And
we also noted that it's very good in the event of an emergency in the building to know who we're not looking for in the building, or if there's an emergency out there, have maybe an idea of where the resident is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good to know a lot of, we do deal with a lot of people that have DPOAs and conservators, and they want to know, well, what is my mom doing? What is my dad doing? They keep telling me they're not doing anything in that place and it's boring. And we can say, oh, they attended 10 groups this week. We'll need to figure out why they still find it boring and would do more, but it's really good for that too.
thank you.
And the last question was, do you have any additional suggestions? And our suggestion was, because we know how iffy written communications can be, especially with some of our cursive styles, that it should be upgraded to some type of electronic binder or some type of electronic file where there can be a standard of communications that everybody would know what's going on, and I wouldn't have to guess whose name that is.
All right, and you just threw that idea out there, so guess whose project that now is?
Okay, it's like all you have to do is just give me a laptop and you'll have it.
Yeah, that's it. But that's definitely here, like, when you have really good ideas, like we talked about yesterday, like, when you have good ideas, they're your project. Go for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Group two.
So, emergencies, why are there, if there are two facilitators, one stays in the room at all times during the group ROI? Well, both for physical and emotional safety. You don't know, you need someone to be there to help the residents and to make sure that, to guide them, and if there's any questions. So that's for the first one. And then the second one is, if there's only one facilitator, ask a care partner to be in the room or within sight of participants. Why? Again, for physical and emotional safety, but it goes to the third one that they are the ones who, if someone falls, knows how to pick someone up. We aren't really trained how to do that. And so it's really important, let's say if we're leading a group, to have someone keep an eye on what's happening with each member of the group. Because if we're facilitating, we might be focusing on one thing, and so you need another set of eyes to focus on the rest of the people in the group. Always have a cell phone with you. Why do you think it's necessary? Well, again, if there's an emergency, you want to be able to immediately call either 911 or have someone come up here. And if someone falls, don't pick them up. Call a nurse or care partner to assess if the person can stand up or fall from the desk to get a nurse or care partner to help you. Put both HVC and LTC front desk numbers on your cell phone contact list. And again, this is just, it's kind of self-explanatory.
And the nurses here, we have 10 nurses and we have over 100 care partners. So, and we have the front desk, so put the front desk numbers. And that's the first, you don't like call 911. The first thing you do, since we have so much staff that's trained to take care of it, you contact them. And one other thing is, often they have to go to the bathroom. And so, you need help to
Or get water when it's like warm up here. Like you just really do need two people because or someone just wants to leave. Like someone's ready to go back to their room, so you need someone to be able to, you definitely need a co-facilitator whenever you do a group. Or partnering up with a care partner.
So you were talking about the fluidity, and that's what we were talking about. So people might be in and out or have some need that needed to be met. didn't really go into any suggestions. I guess one thing that I might think is that are we trained in terms of, we must be trained in first aid and all of that, are we?
You did a first aid
First aid
certificate,
CPR.
right? I mean, we did last year. We'd have a first aid certificate before we.
Yeah.
So that would be an
Started.
idea if you want. I think that would be necessary
Yeah.
for everyone to be trained in first aid.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point.
And the nurses are awesome. Like Sally said, I had a resident fall during one of my groups, and we just, you know, like same thing, like had him stay on the ground, had a pillow under his head. My co-facilitator went and got the nurse. The nurse came, and it was not as he was totally fine. It was really traumatic too to everyone else in the group to have someone fall, and then that was a big thing we had to process. And but yeah, and the nurses were great. They came up. There was no like shaming or anything like that too. Like, don't be afraid. The biggest thing is like, do not be afraid to ask for help. Like, no one's gonna be upset with you. You know, like do the best you can. And yeah.
So we have 3 more groups to talk about the rules, and let's go to the 3rd group. That's you guys.
It's all volunteer.
Thank you.
So one of the questions that arose was a need for 2 interns in the public room where the residents are, from group to the public room where residents don't have their sleeping quarters, like the samba room or at the park or at the cafe. And one of the reasons we thought of was, you know, groups are about social and community. And we really want to pull the people out of wherever they're sleeping, residing, and get them more into the community and make them feel a part of it. And that way we're also not, you know, the rest of the group isn't invading their personal space.
That's very important. That like when you do groups on floors, to think about that's someone's living room too.
Right.
And if you like, if you're having down in the movie room, and again, somebody has to go to the bathroom, and there's no care partners on that floor. See, a lot of these floors that we mentioned, these rooms, there's nobody around, like here, this room right here. So that's why you need to have somebody in the room if you're going, getting more people to participate in your group. I mean, somebody has to be here. You know.
In a group, give residents chairs with arms. We had several ideas about this, and mostly they were around physical comfort and need. Some residents, to be able to stand up, need the arms for support, as an example. Some residents, maybe they feel more comfortable, maybe their arms need that support just while they're sitting down. As another example, give yourself 15 minutes to escort residents to and from a group. Some residents move slower. And personally, I would hate to have a resident feel like, well, because you're moving slow, we're holding everything up. And I would hate to, you know, force that negativity on them. If a movie's being shown, keep some lights on. Well, not all the elders may communicate verbally. Maybe they wave their hand trying to get the facilitator's attention. If the lights are off, we can't see either. Maybe they need to get up and go toward a restroom, and then they won't be able to see. So it's a key safety ingredient in there. And I think someone also brought in maybe some elders are maybe more disinhibited than others. And if they get touchy-feely and we can't see it, then we can't do anything about it.
Also, some may fall asleep
Right?
late at night. movie.
Hopefully they're asleep.
Fall asleep, fall off the chair and fall asleep.
That's another good reason for arms too. Is if someone does nod off in a chair without arms, and any of us nodded off in a chair without arms.
Yeah. And when we made up these rules, believe me, these things have happened. It's all happened. People have fallen off chairs because they've fallen asleep, so we learn from our mistakes.
And then the last thing that was on the list was, do you have any additional suggestions? And we didn't quite get there. We had to refocus.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
Out of
Thank
time.
you.
How about materials?
We have that. So the first one is be prepared with materials and make sure that equipment is working before you start your group. Why? Give examples. We talked a little bit about that. It's just good. Preparedness is good in any group with anything. One of the other things that was added was to make sure you have enough materials for everyone as well. That was important. Keep scissors in your pocket or a safe enclosed place under your control. Never leave residents unattended with sharp objects such as knitting needles We talked a little bit about this yesterday collectively, so I think it's fairly obvious why. If it isn't, we can revisit it. Number 3, be careful with smaller objects. Again, this was something we covered yesterday. And 4, do you have any additional suggestions? We had a few. Make sure that whatever we're doing material-wise, it's easy for everyone within all capacities, mental, physical, etc. Basically help residents who need more physical support, which again covered what you guys said earlier. Handouts, agreements, rules for how the group is to be conducted, if those are needed. Let's see, ensuring everyone's on the same page, making sure that everyone knows the time and place. Okay, and then last, for any group, self-care, first and foremost, for the people who are facilitating, so you can be as fully present with yourself as possible.
Awesome. And what if you want to go on a walk with residents? Group walks, the 5th group.
Yeah. So the first question was on group walks. One is who is the leader and one is the group's why. I mean, it's just to make sure that they have a shared sense of direction. Like, you know, instead of, it creates an organization for the person that everybody is safe and that nobody gets lost. You know, instead of having 2 leaders, and if you have one and one follower, the follower just takes the route of the leader. The second question was keeping the group together. Why? Same thing. It's organization. It's safety. It's a unification. Members of the community do not push wheelchairs. Why? Safety and comfort for the elders. It's it's not. Once again, it's they sometimes they're not physically capable of doing that. They should not be able to push the chairs themselves. It's these jobs for the interns. Make sure folks have walking shoes if they're walking. Why? Safety and comfort. Once again, and they might slip and fall if they don't wear shoes. I mean, it's pretty easy. Have folks dress appropriately for the weather. Safety and comfort. Do you have any additional suggestions? I think the best thing is just to ask the elders themselves what they would require for their own safety and comfort when going on walks.
And note that they're more frail than you are. So if it's cold, like a day like today, you might want to just have short sleeves, but not all our elders are that frail. But a lot of them, they need to have warm clothes, hats to protect their head. They're out every day, in the sun. So thank you all. These are really good. We do have a lot more rules, but I just thought I'd give you a chance to experience some of them that you need to know right away. Yeah.
Are there copies online or something available for every
I can make
facility to have access to? Because these are very helpful, I think, for all the facilities.
These sheets available to everybody,
Right.
through Kyrie, we'll get all your emails set up and
We'll have a SF intern 2014, 2015, list.
And there will be
You guys all get AgeSong
another
emails.
discussion of wheelchair navigation, right? You haven't had that yet?
No.
Should be by the end of this day. I hope so, because it's super important. But I heard that you would have it.
Yeah.
So we have one more exercise, which is, we look at all the things that make a successful group, and you, the group facilitator, is a primary one. So this exercise, you sort of sit by yourself, sort of a guided imagery. You sort of go inside a little bit and think of some leader or facilitator or teacher or spiritual leader that has had, that you admired, that you really valued. It could be from your childhood, it could be in your family, it could be a relative, it could be where you go to school, it could be somebody in your current program. I mean, some leader or facilitator that you really, really admired. And as you think of that person, think of what qualities, characteristics that person had that you admire. What is it in that person that really inspired you or currently inspires you? And you can think of all different types of reasons But I'd like to sort of give you a moment to think about that, and then you can turn to the person next to you, and if you have a group of 3, that's okay too, and share with each other the qualities of that person that you really admire as a leader, as a facilitator, as a teacher, as a mentor. And we'll just give this to you for a couple minutes, each person share your part here. You listen to everyone.
Alright, does anybody want to just shout out a little bit of maybe some of the qualities you identify? What makes a good group leader?
Passionate about the topic.
That's awesome, yeah. We're going to talk a little about that right now. That's perfect. Anything else?
Charismatic.
Charisma, yeah.
Flexibility, engagement to the individual.
Yep. Anything else?
Deep listening.
Deep listening, yeah. Great.
Inclusiveness.
Inclusiveness.
Selfless.
What'd you say?
Selfless.
Selfless.
John gave a wonderful example about a knitting group at the Wood Park facility. Would you mind sharing a little bit? It was really valuable to me anyway.
Sure. Go for it.
So it's, yeah, I guess it kind of had to do with flexibility. So we have this knitting group, and one of the residents, that's kind of her thing. She loves crocheting. And so we'll have her start crocheting, and then she'll teach people, and then some people who have forgetfulness might come on in and start talking to others. And so we'll give her a task, and she loves to like undo the knots in the yarn. And then there'll be like another person who may not want to crochet, but he's got lots of stories about his grandmother crocheting and growing up. And so it's a way to be able to include everyone in the same arena, but they don't all have to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, totally. That's a perfect anecdote because I feel like that's the way most groups end up being here. Yeah, so definitely take that model and apply it. I have a quote on leadership that I want to share with you guys by David Foster Wallace. And I know, and you'll notice we're using the word facilitator when we talk about groups just because we want to be, we want to honor the fact that the residents are, like, we're not leading them. It's not directive. We're facilitating meaningful activities that, you know, that they want to have in their life. Again, respecting the fact that this is their home. And like you guys heard how important that agency and stuff is, I think that was pretty evident. But so this is a quote that I think is really great about leadership and something that aspirational. So it says, the weird thing is that the word leader itself is cliche and boring. But when you come across somebody who actually is a real leader, that person isn't cliche or boring at all. In fact, he's sort of the opposite of cliche and boring. A real leader is somebody who, because of his own particular power and charisma and example, is able to inspire people. With inspire being used here in a serious and non-cliche way. A real leader can somehow get us to do certain things that deep down we think are good and want to be able to do, but usually can't get ourselves to do on our own. I want to repeat that part because I really feel like here as facilitators, that's the biggest thing that we can hope to do is that, okay, so a real leader can somehow get us to do certain things that deep down we think are good and want to be able to do, but usually can't ourselves do on our own. You almost always like how a real leader makes you feel. The way you find yourself working harder and pushing yourself and thinking in ways you couldn't ever get to on your own. A real leader is somebody who can help us overcome the limitations of our own individual laziness and selfishness and weakness and fear and get us to do the things that we can get ourselves to do on our own. David Foster Wallace. I'm sorry if it's a little choppy. It's a beautiful piece of art, but it's white on white, so it's a little hard to read. But yeah, I think that like vision of leadership as really facilitative, and it's a quiet leadership, is a great aspiration for your groups here.
Anybody else have any
The ability to clarify confusion.
So we want to talk a little bit about, so now we've talked a lot about groups, but like, so what are they actually going to look like here? And so we mentioned, so basically the structure for groups, there's going to be two types of groups. There's going to be groups that are scheduled at a certain time that have a name, and the same activity is done in that group. So Are We Here Yet? Like we talked about, the philosophy group is an example of that. The LGBT group is an example of that. There's a movie group on Sundays, and there's a handful of those that the residents have requested to continue on with the next intern year that at some point in the near future you guys will be signing up to be facilitators for. For the rest of the time of groups, how we're going to do it is they're going to be being with blocks of time. You're going to pick a being with block of time, and you're going to pick a location. So that might be a floor, or it might be a location like the rooftop. And you're going to go to that area at your time. You're going to use your intuition to observe what's going on, maybe talk to some residents, see what's happening, and feel what's needed in that moment in that space. And it might be several things over the amount of time that you have on that space. Maybe you'll do some meditation, then maybe you'll do some art, then maybe you'll dance, or maybe it'll be the entire time doing one activity. But really, instead of groups being, all the groups being at a certain time and a certain activity, using the intuition, using what the residents want, and being dynamic. Enrichment offers a lot of groups as well that are going to be going on at the same time. So some days, if there's already been 2 hours of music might not be what the residents want to do anymore that day. But if there hasn't been music, then maybe that's something that's really...
And you can see our schedule. We all have, you could both go to agesong.com, and there's the events that are for each community, in the cafe, for the public. So for every day, it's all automated, and we enter in new information every day, so it's all there. And it's also at the front desk of Hayes
and here.
And Laguna.
And so we'll be saying, so your being with blocks will be on there as well as the other stuff. So that'll all get sorted out. So the biggest thing with that too is yesterday we talked about, from a humanistic perspective, the almost like losing yourself in the other. And I want to say it's less of losing yourself and it's more of losing your objective self, the person that has that persona, the person that is just defined by all the labels. And it's more of finding your subjective self, the more expansive, that, your inner wisdom, however you want to define. I think we've all had moments of that sense of that real inner core, and finding that person and bringing that person to the groups. And really honoring that we're in a place where a lot of the residents might not know that AgeSong is a place where it's okay to be forgetful. They might not know that it's a place where it's okay for your art to not look like some pieces at museums. And so really, if you can come in being yourself and being non-judgmental about yourself, it's going to help them to feel that safety. And I'm not saying to be goofy, but it's more about getting authentic. And so I know for me, that looks a lot like I had a fairy tale group, and I absolutely I see the world kind of magically and in metaphor, and that is so who I am. And by not being afraid because of professionalism to bring that forward, I was able to have this really beautiful, rich experience. So it's about tapping into your own subjective and authentic self. And then there's almost 100 residents here. There's going to be other people here that have similar, like we were talking yesterday about how we're all unique. So thinking about those unique parts, the unique tapestry that's you, and then finding resonance in that with the residents here, and having groups that work on that. Don't do things that where you're passionate, like we were talking about, leaders have passion and charisma, and that comes from being authentic. And so I really want to encourage you guys to tap into listening. It's it's seeing what the residents are asking for, and what of their needs are you best suited to help facilitate filling. I really want to encourage.
And do you want, it's like a combination of what participants need and what you want to, are excited about to share. Excited, not only have the skills, but are highly motivated to share. That's the click.
And then obviously we are all here doing psychotherapeutic internships, traineeships, practicums, blah, 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 lingo. And so we'll talk more about this later, but a great framework if you really want to make sure you have therapeutic underpinnings are Irvin Yalom's 12 factors for group therapy. And I have a handout that I've made for AgeSong that you guys will get at some point on those. But there are things like universality. So the shared experience of it's okay to forget, or it's okay to, whatever that shared experience, like in Are We Here Yet? One resident said, I don't ever feel like I'm all here. And then so I said, all right, well, who else doesn't feel like they're all here? And we all raised our hands. you know, and like installation of hope is another one of his interpersonal relationships. So we'll talk more about that, but that's a great way to tie it back to the psychotherapeutic, to think about, okay, this is for this purpose, and what does that look like in with non-traditional interventions? So overlaying those two has been really helpful. I'll also provide you guys a list of groups that happened in the past, what demographic, you know, like what the target audience was for those groups, because we have lots of different residents here, so that you guys have some idea so you're not just going blind. But I encourage you, until we get those structures in place, when you're here and on the floor, to go on the floor and just, feel your intuition, interact with residents. We have art supplies, we have balls, we have music, iPod ports, instruments, I don't even know what else, scarves, what else do we have, Sue-Ann? We have all sorts of stuff.
A lot of stuff, but just put them back where you found them, so that the next person might be using them, you know, another group, or so you can find it the next week, whatever. Good.
So
And
we
then
have like 5 more minutes.
just a minute about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, you all know that, right? The first one is what? That's right. Basic physical needs. If they have to go to the bathroom, they're not going to be good in your group until they go. If they're cold, if they're exhausted, you know. So first, pay attention to the individuals.
Hangry is important too.
Hungry. Get them something to eat. There's always food around. Fruit. You know, you can always ask somebody for food. And I'm just going to say the first two because they're necessary for you to have a successful group. And the second one is yes, thank you. Safety, and we've talked about that already. That's why we have all these safe groups rules that I will make available to you. They'll be electronically. I didn't want to Xerox them.
I kind of just want to get feedback of, all right, so we sort of just talked a whole bunch about groups. So can you just get some impressions of what you guys feel like groups are at AgeSong now, sort of what we covered, I want to hear the review come from you guys of what were the pieces that stuck and that we'll remind your fellow new interns. Go. What did we talk about today? What's the thing that stuck with you most? Safety. Yeah. And fun.
Yeah.
All right, what else? So safety, really important.
I kind of sense that it's less important to completely stick to the subject of the group, but more make sure people have a space to feel heard and connect and just enjoy their time in the group. Then we have to talk about whatever
Exactly.
the name of it is.
Exactly. So the subjective versus objective thing too. It's not about this is this and this needs to get done. Yeah, it's about being with. Yeah.
To offer the opportunity to connect, to break the monotony.
Passion. What John had said earlier, being flexible and inclusive of everyone, even if they're not doing what's supposed to be done.
Yep.
Accessibility.
What struck with me the most was when some of the elders came in the beginning and introduced themselves, and we got to interact with them. That moment of sharing with each other was great.
And you can hear their passion, and this is their home, their life. We're just guests. Anything else?
Being authentic, being yourself.
Yeah, this is a bright group here.
I know, they're so good. And this is that's one of my favorite things about this place is that it really lets you be the best version of you for the residents and for us, which is just, so lovely in a clinical setting, I think.
So as before you even think of what group you'd like to do, it's probably a good idea to get to know the people that live here. We have various questionnaire type of sheets and all,
Yeah.
but mostly it's just get to know them, hang around with them, and then that'll sort of give you, inspire you to come up with a group that would be meaningful to them and to you.
And this is one of those examples of having ideas. So last year groups, there was a lot of, unrest with groups, and it was a little unsettled, and anyways, so this is one of the things where when you have a good idea, you have to be the one that does it. So I was I don't understand why people are complaining about groups, and I saw this whole why aren't we doing the groups we want to do? And so I sort of instituted myself as group liaison to work with enrichment. We did a whole review of groups, which is where all this has come out of. So this is one of those examples of I saw something, and like Christina says, don't complain, get creative. I heard people complaining, and that's not my style either. And I was like, well, that's just silly. Let's figure out a way, something to do about it. So that's why I'm sitting here today. So again, encouraging that, like, have ideas and then be prepared to be the one to do them. But yeah, so thank you, and I'm gonna close this out the same way we started. So I invite you again to just find the ground, whether it's your chair underneath you or your feet on the floor. Find your breath, and we'll feel the sound together. Thank you. Feel free to reach out. Any questions?